Hey guys, it is Jamie from Not So Wimpy Teacher, and oh my goodness, you guys are already here. I already see your comments. So tonight is really special because I have a guest who's going to be on tonight to help you with getting started with Google Classroom. And so I asked you, are you already using Google Classroom, maybe Google Forms, Google Slides? Are you already using it in your classroom? Or is it something you might like to give a try? Because you're in the right place. So go ahead and let me know in the comments. Have you... we're having some technical issues with sound. I hear my tech assistant running in here. I can already tell. Tell me if you do hear me. Oh, Sharon can hear me. All right. So if you don't have sound, then close it out your window and refresh. Hopefully my husband will type that because you can't hear me say it. Okay, Chanel's here. Awesome. Hi, Chanel. So if you're already using Google, that's awesome. Perfect. Okay. Daniel Mault is going to be joining us, guys, and I have had the privilege of hearing Daniel speak at 3 different conferences, and he inspired me to start creating some resources for Google Classroom. And so you might have noticed that we put up our very first resources for Google Classroom, and I admit they're pretty basic. They're exit tickets for reading for grades 3 and 4, and we're really excited about them. We know they're basic, but we knew we had to start somewhere. It's brand new to us, and so hey, we're starting at the beginning. But I asked Daniel this summer, I said, hey, would you mind coming on and chatting with the teachers in the Not So Wimpy community about Google Classroom? Because I asked you in my teacher Facebook groups, and so many of you said, I'd love to use it, but I need some more training. So this is sort of like a nice little intro for you. So I'm going to introduce you now to Daniel. I'm going to bring him on. All right, Daniel, you are on with us. This is Daniel from Mr Mault's Marketplace. And Daniel has taught 3rd and 4th grade for 13 years in Western New York. I've been told I can't call it.
That's right.
Can't call it upstate New York. It's Western New York. And so for those of you in New York, he's just outside of Buffalo. Is that right, Daniel?
That is true. Yep, that's correct.
And so Daniel's been a technology integrator for the elementary school that he taught at for the past 7 years. But this year he has a brand new position, and he's the full-time technology integrator for his district, which is pre-K through 12. And can you tell us, what does it mean to be a technology integrator?
Yeah. So for the last 7 years or so, I've been doing it kind of in my planning periods, and as teachers need me, I'm heading over and I'm helping them out with just anything, right? So we actually became a Google school a few years ago, and so that's kind of where my interest in Google came from. And that's when I really started helping teachers using Google Classroom, Google Slides, Google Forms, all of those things to weave into their curriculum already. So I was doing it kind of in my free time, right? Because we know that we don't have a ton of that free time anyways, but trying just to help the teachers out when I could. And then last year we started getting the idea. My administration said, hey, how do you feel about doing, a full-time gig of this? Because I think they could see with the technology that we were implementing, it was a full-time job. And so that's what I've been doing. We started about 3 weeks ago, and this is still fresh for me, but I'm pre-K through 12, and I'm in all 3 of our buildings trying to help teachers out with coming up with new ways to weave in that technology. So
that is awesome. Now, yeah. Daniel, I just have to pause and give Shauna a shout out here because I think she might be my twin. She says she's originally from Rochester, New York, and she now lives in Arizona.
Oh, awesome.
So, awesome. Shauna, I am from Rochester, New York, and I also live in Arizona now. So, Daniel, this is pretty cool. We didn't have a technology integrator at the school that I worked at, and it sounds so amazing that your district appreciates technology and its power so much that they're investing in both you and the program. So awesome. Sure. But what's really good for us here in the Not So Wimpy community is that Daniel's been using Google School for several years, and now he is going to share some of the basics with us who don't maybe have as much experience with this. So why, if we haven't started at all, why should we be interested in Google Classroom and using Google resources in our classrooms?
Sure. So, well, I guess I'll start from the beginning, right? So, Google Classroom, first of all, is a platform that Google has provided with us. And basically, what you can do is you can enter in your students, and then you can start sharing resources inside of there. So, no longer do you have to print things out. You can actually share directly inside of Google Classroom with your students. They're able to see those resources, and then they can actually, they can start exploring. They can take some of the resources that maybe you've already created. Maybe you used PowerPoint in the past, or you have maybe something that you created in Word, and now you can bring those inside of Google and you can share those digitally with the kids. And there's so many things you can do, right? For example, if you have a Google Doc or even a PDF, you could share it with your students. The students now can be using the extensions that are available inside of Google. And when they can, they can have those read to them, or they can write on top of those and digitally highlight, underline.
A PDF.
Even a PDF, yes. Yeah.
So you could send reading passages to them instead of having to photocopy them all. So saving paper is huge for a teacher. But I know my students just love to have technology in their hands. So that must be another big benefit.
Right. And something else this has done for me, and I think, we'll talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes as well, is that it's transformed the classroom and the way things work, where maybe at one point you had a PowerPoint on, let's say, in third grade, we teach world communities. So a PowerPoint about a country, and it was more teacher centered. You can now take that, bring it inside of Google, and you can share that in Google Classroom. And now students, you can turn that into a very easy research project where the kids are seeing that information that you've provided, but then they can take it and take it a step further. They're researching themselves. Maybe you're using Google Earth, and you're providing links with the kids inside of that document where the kids actually are using Google Maps and Google Earth to fly down to those places. So again, instead of it being that teacher-driven, that teacher-centered activity, now you're turning it into this activity that is super engaging for kids, but also it's transforming it into that next level of learning for kids as well. So.
I absolutely love that. So my goal is some point my resources will be up to that level. We started with a Google Forms resource. And one thing that teachers are loving about our new exit tickets are their self-grading short assessments. It takes off some of the workload for the teacher, who no longer has to go photocopy them, and she doesn't have to grade them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's something that Google Forms has provided with us. There are so many things you can do inside of Google Forms, not just exit tickets, but we can do pre and post tests. You can do those quick little, just those quick checks like your exit tickets. Mm-hmm. But you can also bring in, and we're starting to build, you can do like classroom escape rooms with those as well. So there's just there's a lot of potential with Google Forms for sure. The other one is Google Slides. So a lot of resources that you'll see, whether you're creating them yourself or you're purchasing from TPT or you're finding those online, a lot of those really wonderful tools that you can share with kids inside the classroom are created with Google Slides. And if you're not familiar with Google Slides, it's very similar to a PowerPoint. Right. And like I said, a lot of the things you can actually take, if you have old PowerPoints that you created, you can actually bring those right in, drag them into your Google Drive, and it will transform those right over to a Google Slides show for students.
That is excellent. I love it. So you mentioned getting resources from TPT. Wow, there are more and more Google resources available on TPT every single day. Like, they have made this a priority, right?
Sure. Yeah. And basically what TPT has said is schools across the country are slowly but surely, whether you have just a few Chromebooks or a few devices in your classroom right now, slowly but surely we're kind of transforming that. And it's really, a lot of schools are becoming one-to-one. But no matter what you have in your school right now, even if you just have a couple of Chromebooks or you have, a shared cart of Chromebooks or, possibly you are one-to-one. We, a few years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, We just started getting carts, and right now we're almost 1-to-1 in the entire district, grades 2 through 12. So, I think we're all getting to that point where we have the devices. Now it's like, okay, what do we do?
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think TPT has said, hey, let's start building this resource bank up, and make sure that we have these things that the teachers need in their hands across all grade levels and all subject areas. So yeah, TPT, there are a ton of resources there right now. And I know you're making them. I'm creating a ton, and we're trying to take those, like I said, those very teacher-centered activities. Maybe they were once those teacher-centered, and bring them over and raise the bar for students to make them more student-centered as well. So there's a ton there. Mm-hmm.
And then TPT, Daniel's going to show you, but TPT's even made it easier for you to download and use these resources very recently. So he's going to actually show you in a video here coming up real quick. Sharon asked this, but it might be a good time. What devices can use Google Classroom? You mentioned Chromebooks, but there are lots of other devices you can use.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, if you have Chromebooks, that's the ideal device, but it doesn't mean you can't do anything on anything else. I mean, you can use iPads. On iPads, there are apps for all of these. So there's a Google Classroom app. There's obviously you can download Google Drive as an app, and then Google Slides, and you can also download Google Sheets if you're using that as well. So iPads, there are definitely apps. You can bring those in. Most schools, including my school, you would have to ask your tech department to push the apps onto the devices for you. Right. So if they're managed by the district, you would have to do that. Definitely laptops, PCs, anything with an internet connection and a browser, you are good to go with.
Internet connection and browser. That's easy.
Right. That's all you need. Yep.
Well, maybe this is a good time to chat about the getting started at your school. Daniel and I had kind of a conversation about this because I wasn't really sure, because my school was not a Google school.
Sure. Yeah. So if you're a Google school, your school is managing everything for you, right? So they're managing your potentially you could have Gmail. You will probably have access to all of your files are going to be inside of Google. So your school is going to have that account set up for you, where you're getting you are getting your Google Drive, where you're storing things. You're getting access to Google Classroom. So basically what that means, if your school is setting it up for you, they're creating the account. It's all managed by them, and all students are inside of there as well. So every student has a Google account. With that being said, I will talk about this a little bit, and you may hear this, where every student has, technically, they have a Gmail account, like an email address. Mm-hmm. Even at the lower levels, they do technically have an email address. The schools probably have email turned off for the younger kids under 13 years old, because that's the law. So they have that email address, and that's their login to all of their platforms. So it's Google Slides and Google Drive and Google Classroom. It would be that username that the school has set up for them, but they would only have limited functionality. If you are not a Google school, and I know we had this conversation at one point, if you're not a Google school, there are ways that you can start integrating these things as well. Mm-hmm. You could, if you wanted to, you could pull up the resources that you would like to use. You could just pull them up on the devices inside of your classroom. So it technically wouldn't be connected to a specific student. They would just be there for the students to use. So if it's an interactive resource, or something you wanted to share with the kids where it is a research project, it wouldn't technically be connected to that student if you're not a Google school. So that is a possibility. So you can definitely still use them. You can still use the resources, but you're just going to use them in a little bit of a different way. So,
but it might be a good idea to start talking to your administration about becoming a Google school.
Sure.
It sounds like this is the way of the future, so probably a good way to think about. But maybe, I know I didn't have very much technology in my classroom, so sometimes it might have worked better if I used my own login to pull up resources for my students to use during center time or something. So it's great that that's an option, but I love the idea of being a Google school, so all your students have their own login and you can take advantage of the program even more.
Yep, yep. And we'll talk about this in the video as well of
Sorry,
how
I'm getting
to.
ahead of myself.
That's okay. That's okay. The wonderful thing is when you have a resource inside of Google Classroom, when you share it, you can make a copy for every single student. So if you are a Google school, they all have those accounts. You can push it to every single student in your classroom, and they're all getting their own copy of this, which really helps out with differentiation. You can assign different things to different students in Google Classroom. But I guess I'm getting ahead of myself because we'll talk about that in the video.
Okay. Well, Margie says Google Classroom is great in any grade level. So I take it she's at a Google school. So that's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
So is there anything else you wanted to add, or are we ready to just jump into this video?
I think we're good. I think we're good to go. And then if there's questions, well, obviously we can answer those after.
Excellent. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and type them in the comments, and Daniel will attempt these questions. Remember, he doesn't work for Google. He is a teacher like you and I who has experience using Google Classroom, but we'll attempt these questions after this little video that he put together to show you some of the basics of how to use the resources in Google Classroom. So here we go. I'm going to be able to do this. Here we go.
Hi everyone, we're going to jump right in and we're going to get started how to start bringing those resources that you're either purchasing or that you're creating in Google Slides, and how you can bring those inside of Google Classroom and how you can start sharing those out with your students as well. So I'm going to start right at the beginning, okay? So this right here, this is my TPT store. I have a ton of resources, and a lot of the sellers that you're going to find on Teachers Pay Teachers, they're probably going to have some sort of custom category, right? The custom category is going to be for Google Classroom or Google Resources, something that uses Google Slides, could be easily shared with students inside of Google Classroom, okay? And if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, that's okay, because I'm going to show you all of that right now. So you can look right over here. I have a section that says Resources for Google Classroom. If I click in there, all of the things that I have created for your classroom for 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, that is all going to be listed here. So you can see here there's just a bunch of resources that most of these things are created inside of Google Slides and then shared out with students, okay? So I'm going to show a couple of things. So let's just say this resource right here. This is a word of the day. It's a digital vocabulary. This actual one you could use with any set of words that you want, right? So if you have vocabulary words that you are already using in your instruction, whether it's from a series or just words that you have a word list at your grade level or your district, you can actually take those words and put those inside of this template of this word of the day. I also have a couple other ones as well, like that are pre-filled with words that I use in my 3rd grade classroom. But the one that I'm going to show you right now is the one that you can fill in your own words. Okay, so you get to the page. I have already purchased this, so you would just go through that normal process of purchasing a resource on TPT, and then from there you can see right here it says Add to Google Drive. This is a wonderful new feature. So this actually is not that old on TPT. You used to have to go through this long process to get it into your drive. It was a little more clunky. This right now is a very simple way that you can get this in, okay? And it makes your life a lot easier. So if you've purchased resources in the past from TPT, go back and check it out, because this is actually going to automatically add the resource directly to your Google Drive account. Okay, and I'm going to show you how that works. So like I said, I've already purchased this. Right here you see the button. Instead of download, it says add to Google Drive. I'm going to click that. It gives you a bit of information here, right? So TPT is just saying, hey, we're going to take this resource that's already created that you purchased, and we're going to make a copy of that, and we're going to put it into your Google Drive. So exactly what I just explained, that's what TPT is saying here. So I'm going to go ahead and say, got it, I understand. At this point, because it is making a copy, it is going to say that you need to choose your account, right? So TPT is going to take this and put it into one of my accounts. So at this point, I am going to say that I'm going to put this in this account, my Google account. I have multiple Google accounts. That's why you saw those listed there. So you can see here, it says it's adding it to Google Drive. It takes a couple of seconds to do. Successfully added. And at this point, you can view it inside of your Google Drive. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that button. And then here is the resource. Takes a little bit to load, only for the fact that this one is a little bit longer. This is a resource for an entire school year. So you can see here, this is a template. The kids, actually, it's a word of the day. So the kids are, after I put these words inside of this document, the kids are going to be able to go ahead and complete this each day. I use this particular resource. I use it at like center time, or when I'm doing guided reading. This is one of our stations. This is one of our rotations each day. So the kids would go in here, they would complete this during that time. So you can see here that this is actually, you can type inside of it, right? So here, this is the teacher end of things. So this right here is the official template, and you can see that right up here at the top. It says that. This is the official template, so I can change this however I want. We're not quite to the sharing stage yet. I'm going to show you next how you can take this document and how you can share it out with your students, so they all have a copy of this document. So you can see this opens up in Google Slides. You could type in any of these boxes. All of these are text boxes. So you are going to type in, as the teacher, you're going to type in the word, the vocab word, and then the kids are going to fill out the rest of this, right? So if you've used Google Slides before, you probably know some of this already, but if you haven't used it, I just want to show you a couple of tricks here. So for this resource, the kids are typing in this information. They can research, they can find the definition of the word, and they can either put it in their own words if that's what you have set up in your classroom, or copy a definition and put it inside of here, paste it inside. Also notice that it says find a picture that demonstrates or represents the word, right? So the kids would go up to they would go to insert, and then they would go to image. And notice here it says search the web. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on search the web. It opens up a new little window over on the side over here. Now, the great thing about this is when you're using it for this purpose, it opens up directly inside of here. So the kids aren't going off and exploring, random parts of the internet or trying to find a picture that goes with this. They can actually do this safe search directly inside of Google Slides. So right over here it says search for images. The kids would go ahead and search for that, and they would be able to insert a picture directly inside. So if I go ahead and I double click, it puts it directly inside of there, and then they can resize it. And hopefully you have those devices to use whether inside of your classroom, right? So we'll talk about your devices right now, actually. So you can use a resource like this, and most of the things you're purchasing from TPT, or the things that you decide to create yourself inside of Google Slides, you can actually share those out on many devices. So if you have Chromebooks in your classroom, fantastic. It's very easy to share it out in there. You can also use iPads. There's an iPad app for Google Slides. There's also one for Google Classroom as well. Okay? If you're using Google Docs, you could do that in Google Docs as well. So if you have an iPad, you could definitely bring all of that on there, as long as you're pushing the apps or you're purchasing the apps. All of those apps are free, so I say purchase, but you just have to go to the App Store and download those onto your iPad. If your district is set up where you're a Google school, then your district would probably have to push those apps out to your devices, okay? So now that you have this, you're ready to share this out with your students. So I'm going to jump over, and typically what I'll do is I'll just go to classroom.google.com, and that is going to open up my account. So if your school is a Google school, that is going to be the easiest way that you could possibly share this out with your students. If you don't know what Google Classroom is, basically it's a platform where you can take information, whether it's links or resources from Google Drive, like we're just looking at, and you are able to easily connect your kids inside of there and then share those resources out. So I'm going to start at the very basics, because I know that a lot of us probably have a Google Classroom already, but maybe some of us do not, and I just want to start back just a bit to show you what you would do. So first of all, when you go to Google Classroom, which is, again, just classroom.google.com, you are going to have to sign up for an account. You can use a Google account. It should probably be, if you have a school account, log in with your school account, okay? Once you do that, once you're inside of here, you can see that I have all of these classes here. Now, this is my personal account, so this is for like training purposes, so these aren't my actual classes at school. But you can see here that each one of these is it has a name, right? And each one of those is a class. So if you're teaching third grade, let's say, and you have a set number of students every day, they're in your class and they don't rotate around, you're probably only going to create one class. So to create a class, you go right up here to the plus sign, right up here in the top right corner. You would click create a class. Notice there's two options there. There's join class or create class. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create class. And we will continue with this. And then you can go ahead and you can put in your class name. So I will go ahead and just type in 3rd grade. You can name the section, the subject, and the room if you want to. You definitely don't need to. If you teach middle school or high school, then I could definitely see that working out because you're going to have multiple classrooms within here. But if you're just teaching one class, I think that you really only need one classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and do create. And it takes a couple of seconds, obviously. And once that is all set up, you will see that it pops up here as a new class. So once that pops up, there we go, perfect. It is going to automatically open this up. Now, if you're still, after we talk today, if you still have questions and you're going through this process by yourself, it does give you a little bit of a tour if it's the first time that you're using Google Classroom. So it will show you around a bit. So again, if you're brand new, definitely take that little tour that Google sets up for you, and I think that's going to be helpful, okay? So this is your Google Classroom. Notice this is the class I made, so it says 3rd grade right up at the top. It does say stream, classwork, people, and grades, okay? So this is where I'm going to start sharing information with my students. First of all, you would need to add your students in. So I'll click on people, and notice that it says teachers. You can add multiple teachers in here, and if you are a Google school, you can invite teachers. So if you have maybe a special ed teacher or RTI, AIS, something along those lines, you could bring those teachers in here so they could share the information, and they would be able to see everything that you share with this class as well. They could also be the ones sharing with the class, okay? To invite students, they would need their devices. So either, like I said, potentially a Chromebook or iPads, some sort of tablet where they were able to access the internet. So they would have to go to, again, classroom.google.com. The students, you could do two things. So you can invite students if you wanted to. So if they already have accounts set up at your school, you could go ahead and you could type in their email addresses or their name, and they would be able to be pulled into your Google Classroom. The alternative here, if I go right up here to the top, there is a class code. So you can see the class code right here. It's under general, and just so you see where I was again, I'm going to jump back in there. So I went to the settings, and then I scrolled down just a bit. It's under general, class code, and then it's listed right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to display that. And you can notice that if you have a projector or some sort of screen in your room, this pops up nice and big on your screen. So the kids on their end would go to classroom.google.com. They would click the plus sign that I showed you in the very beginning, and they would be able to then go ahead and say join class. Your students won't have the option to create a class. That's only for the teacher. So they would go ahead and they would do join class, type in this code, and then they would be automatically linked to your class. So in this section right here, all of your students would start showing up when you do that, okay? So now let's just assume that we have students inside of here. Now let's go back to this document. We have this. We're ready to use this. This is now the resource that you purchased from TPT, or if you decide to make your own resources, that's more than okay too. You would be grabbing that out of your Google Drive and sharing it with kids. That's what I'm going to show you now. So I'm going to jump back over, and I am going to go to classwork. When I go to classwork, there's a little plus that says create. If I click create, notice there's a few things that we see here, right? So there's assignment, a Kami assignment, a quiz assignment, question material, or you can reuse an old post if you want to as well. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do assignment. And notice that it does say that it's for this class for 3rd grade, but also notice when I click that what happens. So if you are a middle school or a high school teacher and you have multiple classes that you would like to assign the same thing to, you could go ahead and you could actually select multiple classes at the same time. Same thing with students. This is awesome for differentiation, right? So once I had my students in here, which right now I don't have any, but once we had our kids in there, if there was a resource that you only wanted to share with a few kids, you could share it with just them, and the rest of the class wouldn't be able to see that, okay? So you can select the students that you want this to go to, which again, for differentiation is absolutely unbelievable, right? So it's just a super powerful, easy way to get the kids the resources they need at their own level. So if you select all students, obviously everybody would see that. You do need to title this, so we'll say word of the day. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Word of the day. You can put instructions in there if you want to. You don't need to. You could say if this is going to be a grade or not. So if it's ungraded, that's more than okay, but you could also put in a specific number of points as well. You could select a due date. You could also select a topic if you want to as well. A topic is basically you're categorizing things. So if I wanted to create a topic, I could say that I want this to go under reading because maybe we're going to use this at reading time. So if I do that, it's going to nest that under the reading category. So going forward, any resources that I share with kids, I could, if it is reading, I could put that under that, and that category is already going to be made, or that topic is already going to be made for me. Now, you have a couple of options down here. You can attach an actual document, a file. You could select something from your Google Drive. You could share a YouTube video or a link. I am going to go ahead because I already, on TPT, I brought this into my Google Drive. I am going to share this resource from there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And notice that it opens up my Google Drive. And you see here that it's sharing the most recent things that I have opened. Now, because I just added that from TPT to my Google Drive and they made that copy for me, I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it's showing up right up there at the top, which is absolutely, it's easy, right? So I go ahead and I click on that. Something very important, and I want to make sure that you are very clear, that we're very clear about what you need to do here. So right here, there's a drop down and it says students can view file. If I click the drop down, it says view file, they can edit file, or make a copy for each student. So think about what the needs are. Like, why are you giving this to your kids, right? There are times where maybe you want to give something to kids that they're going to work on in a group. So maybe you want to say that they can edit the file, but you're only going to select certain kids so they can only edit that particular file, right? Make a copy for each student is going to make every single kid a copy of this document in their Google Drive, in his or her Google Drive, right? Now, the wonderful thing is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assign this. After I assign it, it is going to show up on the student's end. They are going to be able to see it in their classwork, but they're also going to be able to see it in their stream. So the stream is basically a list of all the things that I've ever shared with the kids. Classwork, on the other hand, is going to nest it into those topics. So I made that reading topic. Notice that word of the day is underneath there. Maybe you would like to do a social studies and a math and maybe even a writing, right? So you can nest those however you would like, but right here, I nested this underneath reading. So if I click on here, notice there's a couple of things that show up here. So it does say turned in and assigned. So if I had kids in my class, it would actually say that the number assigned, if I had 20 kids in my class, it would say it was assigned to 20 kids, but nobody has turned it in yet. On the student end of things, once they finish a project, they would be able to turn it in, and it would obviously show right here as the number of kids that have actually turned that in to me. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click View Assignment. It opens up this folder. This right here is not a wonderful example because I don't have the students in there, but if the students were in my class, I had 20 kids in my class, right here would be all 20 of their resources, or all 20 of their topics, all of their projects. So you would see right here every single student's work, and it would say their first name and last name and then the assignment name, right? So it would be very easy for me to double click it, open it up, and I could see in real time students editing their work. I could give comments. I could actually help them with their work. I could ask questions. I could actually, I could do all of those things from within this, right? So I would double click this. I would be able to see the assignment, and I would be able to have that correspondence with kids. Now, of course, if you're an elementary teacher, you're probably going to have an actual conversation with the kids. But giving kids comments and giving feedback in real time, like, it's super motivating to the kids, right? They would see all of these coming up on their screen as they're working at their seats. So they're working, you're saying, great job with this. I would highly suggest finding more information about this. Or, you know what, I know that you already have one synonym for this word, but I think you can come up with a few more synonyms as well, right? So giving that real-time feedback, especially if you're working with another group across the room. So that's super motivating for the kids. They love it, and it's just easy feedback, okay? So that is pretty much what I would do in this case. If I were going to share out with my kids, I would take it from TPT. It would be copied automatically into my Google Drive. I would then go to Google Classroom. I would take it from there, and I would share it with my students. Okay. I'll just show you one more quick example of what this would look like, just so we can go through that process one more time. So I would go to Classwork, Create. I'm going to say that I'm going to create an assignment. I am going to share with all students, and for this one, I'm going to do an animal research project, right? So again, you would probably put instructions in here. I am going to pull this from my Google Drive, and it was one of the recent things that I have pulled up, so you'll see it here in just a second after it loads. This is my animal research project. You can also click here. So if I click on there, it's actually going to open the project, so you can make modifications before sharing with the kids. So if you just want to take a look and make sure that you're refreshed with what actually is in this resource, you could look. So this is the animal research project. Notice it's the kids would go off and they would explore. Maybe over on the side panel here, you would put some links where you want kids to go off and check things out. Putting in pictures, there's text boxes on top where the kids could go ahead and write. So this entire animal research project is inside of Google Slides as well. So I'm going to go back over now that we know that's what I want. I'll go ahead and I will say that I want to make a copy for each student. And we can nest this under a topic if we want to. So if we want to create a new topic, I could go ahead and do science. Notice that inside of there, let me just go back for a second. If I scroll down here, reading is there now because I already created this topic. Reading is here. So if I want to create a new topic of science, I could go ahead and do that. And now I could assign. The other option here, I didn't actually say this, but if you do the drop-down arrow here, there's an assign, a schedule, and a save draft. So those are all options as well. If you don't want to assign it right away, but maybe you want to assign it the next week, you can definitely do that. So I'll go ahead and do assign. And once that assigns, it's going to be under, like I said, it's going to be under classwork, but it's also going to be under the stream as well. And notice that because that's the most recent thing I posted, that is showing up on top here as well. Okay. Grades, after you finish this and after you're looking at through all of the students' assignments, you are actually giving the grade in there, but all of the grades are then showing up over here. Again, not showing up here right now because number one, I don't have students. Number two, I didn't grade anything yet. But it would show up as a nice spreadsheet, all the kids' names down the left-hand side, the assignments across the top, and then all of their grades would be showing up inside of there as well. Okay? So I hope that helps, and we are here to answer questions. I am here to answer questions. So whatever I went too fast with, or whatever you have specific questions about your district and what you do in your schools, that's what I'm here for. So please ask away. All right? Thanks, guys.
Okay. Oop. All right, we're back. First of all, Daniel, thank you for making us that video. I know that you're busy, just started school last month and this month, and taking time out of your schedule to make that for us is
no problem.
Awesome.
Sure
so
thing.
There's been several really cool questions, and I don't want to keep Daniel all night, but I want to get through some of them that I was collecting here. Now, there's one question that kind of popped up over and over, and I think we kind of talked about it, but maybe we need to make it clearer.
Okay.
Here's a big thing. Teachers are wondering, what if I'm not a Google school and my students don't all have email addresses? How can I still use Google Classroom, or can I still use Google Classroom?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a definite answer for you, but I'll go back to what we said earlier. And basically that is you on your devices as the teacher, you can still pull up these resources by logging into your own account, right? So you can download this into your Google Drive like we showed in the video. And then from there, you could pull it up on all the devices. It does require a little bit more work because you have to log in as yourself multiple times on those devices. The only thing you wouldn't really be able to do in that situation, the kids wouldn't be able to work on their own document. You would have to make like multiple copies of that and then put it on those devices so the kids could use it. So the great thing about Google Classroom, which again, if you're not a Google school, make sure you talk to your tech department so you can become one. you wouldn't be able to share it easily back inside of Google Classroom with the teacher. The students wouldn't be able to share it quickly back with you. So you could use the resources, but that functionality that I was kind of showing off inside of there, you wouldn't have all of those capabilities.
Yeah, it feels like in that case, you've sort of made an activity for students to use, but you don't have as much of the data per student that you're getting with the Google Classroom.
Right.
Is it hard to become a Google school?
I don't know what goes really into it. I do know that, you have to sign up directly through Google. Your administration has to do that. And if you have Chromebooks, I do know that if you are becoming a Google school, there is a licensing fee for every single Chromebook that you have in your district. So every student account, there is a cost for that, and I do know it is an annual cost. What it costs, I'm not totally sure. Right. So that is something that your administration would probably have to research a little bit.
All right. And that was quite a few people's questions. So I'm glad we kind of covered that one. Sure. Adrian was wondering, you had mentioned that you can even upload a PDF and that there are extensions that you can use to read the PDF. Do you happen to know what that extension is?
Yeah, so I have a couple of different things. So first of all, if you're uploading a PDF and you want the kids to write over top of it, first of all, Google is coming out. I think it's still in beta right now. You're going to be able to do that directly inside of Google Classroom. So the kids will be able to pull it up. They're going to be able to write over top of it, highlight it, make comments, all that good stuff directly on top of a PDF.
That's coming soon.
That's coming soon.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to save you a step, because right now, to bring in a PDF and then for kids to actually go ahead and to write on top of it, there is an awesome site called Kami. It's Kami, and basically the kids. Yeah, so it's an extension. You can add that to your Chromebooks. I don't know if it is available if you'd be able to do that on any other devices. I don't know if you'd be able to do that like on iPads, laptops, PCs. You'd definitely be able to do it on Chromebooks. It would open up the PDF in this other site, but it is an extension. So when the kids open up the PDF, click the extension, it opens up, and then you have that full functionality. The kids would be able to write directly on top of it. There is also an option in there where you could highlight the text and the kids could have that read to them. That feature of having it read to them, that is a paid feature of Kami. So writing on top, highlighting, commenting on it, those are all free portions of Kami. However, the reading to the students, that is a paid feature. But there is also an extension called Google Read and Write. Google Read and Write. So you could download that extension, and that allows students to highlight the text, click the extension, and that is a free extension for the kids to hear that text read to them. And that actually works on anything. So it's on a website, the kids could highlight a specific paragraph of an article. It could work inside of Google Slides. It would work in anything that there is text that the kids could highlight. They would be able to use Google Read and Write to have it read to them.
Okay, so that's the paid version of Kami or Google Read and Write.
That is correct, yep.
And then Audrey kind of was asking a similar question. You're talking about being able to highlight and write on these PDFs. Are students able to type on the PDFs, like type in their answers?
Yeah, so they can do that on Kami as well. So you can make a text box right inside of there. So if you had all those spaces, the kids would click text box and put it wherever they want on that document and then type directly inside of it. And then they could save that to their drives and share it directly back with you inside of Google Classroom.
Perfect. So I had to tell you this one. There were several people singing your praises, so I hope you'll get... Daniel can't see all these comments right now, but he will have to go back and look at these because people are singing your praises. Okay. They're thanking you, but I just had to tell you, Jody, she was saying that she uses all your math assessments. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Kate had a question. She said, can I put a resource in more than one Google account straight from TPT?
Yeah, so the only thing is, and you'll see this, and it's just like any other resource on TPT, most of them that you'll see, the licensing is for one classroom. So it's for one teacher, which is pretty much the case for everything that you've probably downloaded from TPT in the past. It's the same thing with digital resources as well. So yes, there is that button like I showed you where it says copy it over to your drive. You can copy that into multiple accounts as long as it's your own personal account. So for example, I showed in the video, I have
They were commenting about that.
I saw that. I have multiple accounts, and so I have my personal account, I have my my school account, I also have an administrator account for school as well. So as long as it's for you and it's for your classroom and you're not sharing it with other people, then yes, you can put it into multiple accounts.
Right. You're just sharing it with your students, not other teachers. Yeah, that seems fair. That makes sense to me. Holly was asking, and I feel like we have some teachers on here in Holly's same position. Can I still use Google Classroom if I only have 6 iPads and maybe a shared computer lab? Sure. Can I still take advantage of something like Google Classroom?
Yeah, and I think that's what you were saying earlier. So this is the perfect time when we use we're doing guided reading, and then we have 3 or 4 centers set up during that time. That is really the perfect time to do it, and especially because so many of the projects that you're going to buy on TPT, the ones that I make, they're very self-guided, right? There's a lot of directions in there just for students, and they can go off and explore. And it's very similar to like a guided research. We used to, back in the day when I was in school, we used to do like web quests. There's a lot of those types of.
You're young then, because there was no web quest when I was in school.
That's awesome. So it is I think you'll find there's a lot of resources that are very student driven, and you can put this on those devices. If you have 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, you can have students going over during one of your centers and working on this. Or if it's during, social studies time, you could do the same thing. You could have a few different stations set up where the kids are working on just those few devices that you do have. So definitely a possibility. Yes.
Yeah, I love the idea of using it during centers, because making center work, it takes a lot of prep, but I love the way that you can share these in. So I love that. All right. I'm trying to get as many of these questions as we can. Molly wanted to know, do the students have to join your class every time that they're using a different device?
They need to be logged in as long as they log into Chrome. So let's say that they are on a Chromebook. Let's assume that there's Chromebooks in the classroom. When you log in to a Chromebook, it's really logging into your Google account, that student's Google account. So everything will be there for that student. So if they go to classroom.google.com, all of their things will be there, and they're going to be in that class. So once they enroll one time, as long as they're signed in to their Google account, they're going to see everything. So they don't need to sign in again.
Okay, so if they're just using a small group of iPads or Chromebooks and centers, the students would have to sign in. But once they're already in your class, they don't have to use that code and join your class anymore.
No. Yep. As long as they're signed in, they're good to go.
And Laura was wondering, should you create a classroom for every subject? I think she noticed you had several classrooms in there.
Yeah, and then the reason that I did that is, well, first of all, you can archive old classes, which I apparently never do because all of mine are still sitting in there. Okay. A lot of the ones that I was showing, they were also, test classes for trainings and things that I've done. So I guess my answer to that question is it really depends on how you're going to use it in your classroom. I did see somebody mention that they like to set up a Google Classroom for every class that they teach. Totally up to you, or I should say for every subject area that they teach. But when I think it was probably about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, Google Classroom had that functionality where you could put in all of the different subjects, the topics, right? So now that you can do that, it makes life a lot easier, where I don't really think you need to set up multiple classrooms.
If you set up multiple classrooms, the kids would have to join each one of them, too.
Exactly, yeah. So they would have to put in that code for each one. I guess it really, like I said, it depends. I personally would not do it that way. I think it makes a lot more sense, especially in lower grade levels, 3rd grade, just to have that one classroom. And then to make sure that you're really good about sorting your assignments into those topics. And I think you'll be good to go.
Okay, Lenore had a cool question. She said, when you buy a Google resource from TPT, is it possible to share just one page from that resource with your students instead of the whole resource?
Yeah, so there is the best way to do that I can figure out. And if anybody else has a better way to do this, by all means, share it. But I think the best way to do it is I have a pack of 36 different spelling activities, right? And those 36 spelling activities are all in the same Google Slides presentation. So if you just want to share one of those, you have to delete all of the other pages. But before you do that, make a copy, right? If you forget to make a copy, it's not the end of the world, because remember, you can go back to TPT. You can put it in your drive again. But let me go back a step. You are absolutely right. So first of all, right-click on the document, make a copy, and then delete the pages that you don't want, and then share that document with your students in Google Classroom. Okay. But if you forget to make a copy, or it's, like I said, it's not the end of the world. Just go back and download it again into your drive from TPT.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. That sounds like a good solution I hadn't even thought of. Erica was wondering, how do you make it self-graded? How is it self-graded?
Yeah, so in Google Forms, there's
Google Forms, right?
Google Forms, yeah. So if you're wanting a quick and easy way to get there, you can just go to forms.google.com. And once you're there, it's fairly simple to put it together. So you have to name the document, and then underneath that, you just start putting in those questions.
Yeah, you write in your questions and you write in your answer choices, because that's what my first Google Classroom resources, and I promise I'm going to get fancier because Daniel's challenging me to, but my first one is a Google Forms, and so that's literally what it is. It has the passage, and then it has the answer choices for kids to choose, and then it allows you to set what the correct answer is. That way, when I assign it to students and they answer, it is grading it for me and putting it in a spreadsheet. But it's just Google Forms that does that. So in Google Slides, they would be submitting it to you, and you would open them up on your computer and be able to assess from there.
Right. And you would be able to see all the kids' work. So I think I saw a question about that as well. Like, how do I know? Can I see the kids working on it? Yes, you can actually see it. It's live.
Like
you
in real
click
time.
Inside of it. It's in real time.
Nice.
And you can give comments. You can do anything you want. You could add some, highlight something in the students' work and say, hey, nice job with this, but I think you should add this, this, and this, right? So you can do that in real time to see it. The student sees it right away on their screen. So,
that's fantastic.
Yes.
Lisa was asking, can students type stories and then turn those in through Google Classroom? Can we use this during writing workshop?
Yeah, so what I would suggest with that is because you want access to all of their documents, even if they're starting from nothing, it's just a blank Google Doc, I would go to your Google Drive, create a new doc in your Drive, and then go to Google Classroom and share that blank Google Doc with them. That way, and you're making a copy. You're making a copy for every single student. So just like we showed in the video, make a copy for every student. It's forcing that blank document. Even if there's nothing in it, there's no directions at all, it's just a blank document. Now you are going to see every single student's work inside of your folder from Google Classroom, and you can also visit it in Google Drive as well. So
love that. And then after they turn it in, and maybe you give them a couple feedbacks, then they can change it still, right? If you allow changes.
If you allow changes, yep, that is correct.
Okay, very good. That's been brought up a couple of times.
The editing process has forever been changed in my classroom because of that. So no longer do kids really need to, do their rough copy, and then, you are sitting there with the student and editing, but you're doing it in, real time. They can still sit next to you. You're still making those edits. You're still giving that feedback. But the student is making their final changes, their final edits directly inside of that document, which it's life-changing for the teacher, but also the student feels so much better about it because they don't have to go back and rewrite the entire thing all over again too. So
absolutely. So I'm a huge proponent of starting a draft with pencil and paper. I'm a huge proponent of that. It increases creativity, but I do recommend to teachers that if you have technology, once you get past the drafting stage, get it into technology. It makes it easier for them to do revisions and edits. So that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
There are so many questions, and I don't want to keep Daniel all night. And well, it's like almost dinner time here too. So I'm just going to grab one more here, and then maybe we'll be able to come back in and answer some that didn't get answered in the next day or so. But Sylvia was saying, hey, can students take a spelling test using Google Classroom?
Yeah, that's a good question. You could potentially. I've seen in my groups, I have this question actually a lot. So you could potentially do it in Google Forms. You could have them actually type the words as you're as you're giving the actual test.
And it doesn't auto spell check them?
The issue is that on most devices, it's showing that little red line underneath,
That's what
and
I'm
it's
thinking.
saying, "Hey, go ahead and right click and see the correct spelling of that." So that potentially is the issue. There may be ways around this. There may be some things that maybe I'm not even quite sure about with that, but
can have a multiple choice spelling test.
Multiple choice,
do that.
Definitely. Yep.
And then someone had asked, can you use Google Forms? They want the self-checking. Could you use Google Forms for math if it's not something multiple choice? Can they type in an answer?
Yeah, you can type in an answer. If it's this goes for anything, not just math, but for if it's ELA or reading, writing, whatever you're doing inside of there. In order for it to be self-grading, it either needs to be multiple choice or short answer. So you can put short answers in there. If it's extended response, obviously it would be teacher graded, and you would have to go in and you would have to set it in a grade for each one of those questions. So
that'd be great for your reading response menus, guys. Have your kids answer them in Google, and it's not self-checking, but it's also not a stack of papers you take home every night. And then it integrates some technology, so I like it.
Yep.
Okay, so if the longer we stay on, the more amazing questions we have. So we will do our best to answer some more of these later. But Daniel also has another place that you can go. I will definitely share a store link, but Daniel has created an amazing Facebook group, right, for teachers who are using Google?
Yeah, so we started it a couple of years ago, and it's kind of evolved. There's a lot of conversation in there. It's called Google Classroom Gab Group. Make sure you answer the question so I know you're a teacher, and if you're here, I'm assuming you are, so we're good. So it's Google Classroom Gab Group on Facebook, and it's just a group of teachers. I think we have 5,000 teachers in here right now of just those getting started with Google. We have some middle of the road people who are semi-new, and then we have some experts in there as well that are always answering questions. So if you have specific questions, definitely come in there and share them, and whatever you have. I mean, even if it's a beginner question, search the group, check and see. But if it hasn't been answered before, by all means, ask it, and we'll all be willing to help you and share resources. If you're looking for resources that are specific to your needs, then we'll share those with you as well. So Google Classroom Gab Group on Facebook, it's
so Google Classroom Gab Group on Facebook, and then Mr Mault's Marketplace on TPT. Thank you, Kevin, who went ahead and put a link straight to your store.
Great.
So,
Awesome.
I mean, I don't know. Are you paying him? But I am going to add those links up in the description to this video too, so that they're easier for everybody to find. But Kelsey said it. She said this webinar has been amazing. So thank you, Daniel, for taking so much time to chat with us. And we look forward to continuing that chat over in your Facebook group, the Google Classroom Gab group. We'll look forward to continuing to learn more about Google Classroom from you. So thank you so much. And guys, thank you for joining us. And I know I'll be back real soon with something else really fun for you. So have a not so wimpy night.